Emily Walker was only 18 when she decided to join the elite Special Forces unit. While most teenagers were busy thinking about college, parties, or their first jobs, Emily had her mind set on something far more challenging. From the moment she stepped into the training grounds, it was clear that she was stepping into a world where only the strongest, the fastest, and the smartest survived. But what made it even harder for Emily wasn't the grueling physical challenges or the complicated strategies. It was the doubt she faced from everyone around her. The other recruits were older, more experienced, and had already spent years preparing for this. Some of them were hardened soldiers who had already seen combat, while others had military backgrounds in their families. Emily, by comparison, was just a teenager fresh out of high school with no real-world combat experience. From day one, whispers followed her wherever she went. "She's too young. She won't last a week. Just dead weight." These words, meant to belittle her, filled the air in the training barracks. At first, Emily felt the sting of those words. She could hear the laughter, the quiet smirks, and even the subtle eye rolls whenever she tried to prove herself. It would have been easy to give up, to go home, and tell herself that perhaps she wasn't ready. But Emily had something that no one could take away from her. A burning determination. Deep inside, she knew that age didn't define ability. She also understood that being underestimated could be a powerful tool if she learned to use it wisely. Her first days were the toughest. While the other recruits seemed to move through drills effortlessly, Emily struggled. Climbing walls, running long distances, and completing complex obstacle courses left her exhausted, both physically and mentally. There were moments when she stumbled, fell behind, and questioned herself. But every time she felt weak or discouraged, she reminded herself why she had joined. Emily didn't just want to survive in the Special Forces. She wanted to excel, to prove that she could rise above the doubts and the ridicule. What set Emily apart wasn't raw strength or experience. It was her mindset. She paid close attention to everything around her, learning from the mistakes of others and observing the tactics of the veterans. She listened when instructors explained strategies, noting every detail, every nuance, and every piece of advice. Unlike some of the older recruits, who relied on what they thought they already knew, Emily had the ability to learn quickly and adapt. Her youthful mind, often considered a weakness by her peers, turned out to be one of her greatest strengths. Even when the other recruits mocked her, Emily didn't react angrily or argue. Instead, she let her actions speak for her. When a drill went wrong, she would analyze what happened, figure out what she could do better next time, and quietly improve. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the same recruits who had laughed at her started noticing. They saw her running longer distances without stopping, completing tasks with increasing precision, and showing an unwavering focus that even some veterans struggled to maintain. Emily also developed a quiet resilience. She learned to handle the pressure of being judged constantly, to keep calm under criticism, and to turn negativity into fuel. She understood that in the world she was entering, mental strength was just as important as physical strength. If she let the mocking and doubts shake her, she would fail. But by keeping her focus and ignoring the distractions, she slowly built a confidence that no one could easily break. Her instructors, initially skeptical, began to take notice as well. They saw a spark in Emily that was rare, especially in someone so young. Her determination, focus, and quick learning ability made her stand out in ways that her peers could not yet understand. While they were still cautious about her readiness for real missions, the seeds of respect were planted. Emily's journey wasn't about instant admiration. It was about persistence, observation, and silently proving her worth every single day. By the end of her first week, Emily had already started to change the perception around her. Though she was still the youngest and least experienced, her dedication, cleverness, and unshakable resolve began to earn her small victories. A few of the recruits who had mocked her before now offered subtle nods of approval, while instructors started giving her more challenging tasks to test her abilities. Emily's first days in the Special Forces were not easy. She faced ridicule, physical exhaustion, and self-doubt. But through it all, she displayed a remarkable combination of intelligence, resilience, and courage. She had entered a world where being underestimated was common, but she realized that being underestimated could also be an advantage. Every challenge she overcame, every skill she mastered, was a quiet step toward proving to herself, and eventually to everyone else, that she was capable of more than anyone could imagine. By the time part one of her journey ended, Emily had already begun transforming from the deadweight recruit into a promising soldier. She hadn't yet faced the true dangers of combat, but she had conquered the first, perhaps most important, battle, proving to herself that she belonged. And for Emily, that was only the beginning. The next phase of Emily Walker's journey was the training, and it was far tougher than anything she had imagined. The first week had been just a taste of the challenge, a small glimpse of the physical and mental demands of becoming an elite soldier. Now, she was diving deep into the grueling regimen that would test every ounce of her strength, endurance, and willpower. For most recruits, training was a battlefield of its own. But for Emily, it was a stage where she could prove that determination mattered more than age or experience. Each day began before sunrise. Emily would wake up to the sharp sound of the drill sergeant's whistle, signaling the start of a new day of relentless exercises. The mornings were spent running long distances over rough terrain, carrying heavy packs that seemed to grow heavier with each step. While the older recruits pushed themselves physically, Emily struggled to keep pace at first. Her legs burned, her lungs felt like they were on fire, and each stride felt like a battle. Yet she refused to give in. She reminded herself that pain was temporary, but failure would linger forever. Obstacle courses were the real nightmare. Walls to climb, ropes to swing across, and pits to crawl through tested not only her strength but her courage. Emily fell more times than she could count, scraped her knees, and bruised her arms. Watching some of the veterans breeze through these challenges could have been discouraging, but instead, it motivated her. Each time she fell, she analyzed why she failed, figuring out a smarter, faster way to overcome the obstacle next time. While others relied on brute strength alone, Emily combined strategy with effort, slowly learning that brains could be just as important as brawn. But it wasn't just physical endurance that was challenging. Mental toughness was just as crucial. The instructors designed exercises to push recruits to their limits, forcing them to make split-second decisions under stress. Emily had to memorize complex tactical plans, respond to unexpected threats, and execute precise movements while exhausted. Mistakes were punished harshly, not just with physical drills but with stern corrections and public criticism. Many recruits cracked under the pressure, letting frustration and fear take control. Emily, however, learned to treat every mistake as a lesson. Instead of reacting emotionally, she stayed calm, evaluated what went wrong, and adapted quickly. This ability to remain composed while others panicked started setting her apart. Sleep deprivation was another major hurdle. Recruits often had to train for hours without proper rest, navigating obstacle courses or running time drills late into the night. Emily's body ached, and her mind often felt foggy, but she developed a quiet resilience. She learned to function even when exhausted, to push through fatigue, and to stay focused on the mission ahead. This skill, she realized, would be invaluable in real combat situations where fatigue and stress could mean the difference between life and death. What made Emily's progress remarkable was her mindset. While some recruits became discouraged by failures, Emily saw each challenge as an opportunity to improve. She watched the veterans carefully, learning from their techniques, observing their mistakes, and adapting her own approach. Unlike the older recruits who sometimes relied on pride or habit, Emily had the advantage of flexibility. Her young mind absorbed lessons quickly, and she experimented with different strategies until she found what worked best. Gradually, her skill and efficiency began to improve, catching the attention of the instructors. Small victories began to accumulate. She completed obstacle courses faster, executed drills with greater precision, and demonstrated problem-solving skills that surprised even the most skeptical trainers. Her quiet determination and steady improvement earned her nods of acknowledgement, even from the recruits who had once mocked her. Though Emily didn't seek attention or praise, these small signs of recognition fueled her drive even more. She understood that respect was earned through consistent effort, not words. Emily also began forming subtle bonds with a few of her peers. Some of the older recruits, initially dismissive, started noticing her resilience and cleverness. They saw a young soldier who could hold her own in grueling challenges, someone who didn't complain or give up even when the odds were against her. While she remained an outsider in many ways, these small alliances helped her navigate the demanding environment of the training camp. Emily learned that in the Special Forces, teamwork could be as important as individual skill, and earning the trust of even a few teammates was a critical step forward. By the end of the intense weeks of training, Emily had transformed significantly. She was stronger, faster, and sharper than when she had first arrived. More importantly, she had developed a confidence that could not be shaken by ridicule or doubt. Her progress was no longer just about physical skill. It was a testament to her determination, intelligence, and adaptability. The young recruit who had once been called deadweight was now a formidable presence, quietly earning respect through consistent effort and unwavering focus. Emily's journey through training taught her lessons that would carry her through the most dangerous situations ahead. She learned that success was built on persistence, observation, and the courage to keep moving forward when others doubted her. Her struggles, failures, and eventual triumphs in this phase of her journey laid the foundation for the soldier she was becoming. The underdog who had once been underestimated was now emerging as a force to be reckoned with, a soldier ready to face challenges far beyond the training grounds. By the time Part 2 ended, Emily had not only survived the toughest training of her life, but she had also started to redefine what it meant to be young and inexperienced in a world dominated by seasoned veterans. She had proven, most importantly to herself, that determination, intelligence, and courage could overcome any obstacle, even when the odds seemed impossible. After weeks of grueling training, Emily Walker finally reached the stage where theory met reality, her first real assignment. Unlike the controlled environment of the training camp, this mission carried real consequences. For the first time, Emily would see whether her skills, endurance, and instincts could survive under pressure outside of practice drills. She was assigned to a small reconnaissance team, a tight-knit unit tasked with gathering intelligence on enemy movements in a dangerous, hostile territory. This wasn't just a test of strength or speed. It was a test of judgment, teamwork, and courage. From the very beginning, Emily sensed the skepticism of her teammates. They were older, experienced soldiers who had already faced the harsh realities of combat. To them, she was still the 18-year-old recruit who had struggled through training, the young girl they had quietly labeled deadweight. Some didn't hide their doubts. During briefings, she could feel their glances, measuring, questioning, silently wondering if she was really capable of handling what lay ahead. But Emily refused to let their judgment affect her. Instead, she focused on observing, listening, and learning, understanding that earning their trust would come from her actions, not her words. The mission began with careful planning. The team was sent into enemy-controlled territory to gather intelligence on troop movements and potential threats. Every detail mattered. Every footstep could be heard. Every shadow could hide danger. Emily approached the assignment with a quiet intensity. She memorized maps, studied enemy patterns, and absorbed the strategies suggested by the senior soldiers. Unlike some who relied purely on experience, she relied on preparation and adaptability. Emily knew that mistakes in the field could be catastrophic, and she refused to let overconfidence or fear get in the way. When the team moved into the field, the true challenge became apparent. The terrain was unforgiving. Rocky hills, dense forests, and hidden ravines made navigation difficult and exhausting. The heat during the day and the freezing cold at night tested the limits of every soldier. While some recruits struggled to maintain focus, Emily thrived under pressure. Her endurance, honed through countless drills and obstacle courses, allowed her to keep pace with the veterans. Her attention to detail helped the team avoid traps and dangerous spots they might have otherwise missed. Tension escalated when they encountered an unexpected ambush. Enemy patrols had discovered part of their movement, and suddenly, what was supposed to be a careful reconnaissance became a test of survival. Panic is contagious in situations like this, and Emily saw the fear in her teammates' eyes. But instead of freezing, she relied on the instincts she had built in training. She signaled the team to take cover, pointed out escape routes, and coordinated movements with calm precision. Her ability to stay composed and think clearly under fire surprised everyone, especially her more experienced teammates. Emily's quick thinking prevented what could have been a disaster. By guiding the team to safety, avoiding unnecessary confrontation, and keeping everyone focused on the mission, she not only preserved lives but also proved her capability in a real-life combat scenario. The veteran soldiers, who had once doubted her, now had to acknowledge that she was no longer just the young recruit. They saw a competent, reliable soldier capable of handling pressure and making critical decisions when it mattered most. As the mission progressed, Emily's observational skills became an invaluable asset. She noticed subtle patterns in enemy patrols, recognized potential ambush points, and suggested alternate routes that kept the team one step ahead. Her contributions weren't loud or boastful. They were practical, efficient, and impactful. Slowly, respect replaced skepticism. Teammates who had whispered doubts about her age and inexperience began to defer to her advice, realizing that her intelligence and calm judgment were rare qualities, even among seasoned soldiers. What made Emily stand out was not just her skill, but her mindset. She never sought recognition or attention. Every action she took was for the safety of the team and the success of the mission. She had learned during training that true strength was quiet and consistent, not loud or flashy. Her ability to combine physical capability with mental acuity and emotional control was what set her apart. While other recruits might have been focused on proving themselves, Emily focused on achieving the mission, letting her results speak for her. By the time the team returned from the reconnaissance assignment, the transformation in perception was remarkable. Emily, once the recruit whispered about and underestimated, had proven herself under conditions that tested every skill she had learned. The same soldiers who had doubted her were now quietly impressed, recognizing that her combination of intelligence, composure, and determination made her a valuable member of the unit. Emily herself felt a quiet satisfaction, not from earning respect, but from knowing that she had faced a real test and emerged capable. This first assignment also planted the seeds of a reputation that would follow her in the future. Emily's quick thinking and effective performance under pressure were the foundation for the legend that would eventually grow around her codename. While she remained humble, she understood that real recognition comes from action, and that every challenge she faced in the field was a step toward proving her worth, not just to others, but to herself. By the end of Part 3, Emily had achieved something far greater than surviving a dangerous mission. She had demonstrated that her age and inexperience were not weaknesses, they were merely numbers on a page. Her courage, intelligence, and calm under pressure had started to redefine what it meant to be the youngest recruit in an elite special forces unit. Emily had moved from being underestimated to being an essential, respected member of her team, setting the stage for even greater challenges and the moments where her codename would strike fear into enemies. After Emily's first successful assignment, she began to earn quiet respect within her team, but her journey was far from over. Every mission and every exercise was now an opportunity to sharpen her skills, prove her worth, and prepare for the day when she would face the true challenges of combat. During this period, she was given a new responsibility that would mark a turning point in her career: adopting a codename for covert operations. Her instructors and commanding officers believed that using codenames during missions not only ensured security, but also gave soldiers an identity that could inspire confidence within the team and intimidate the enemy. Emily was given the opportunity to choose her own codename, and she knew this choice was more than just a label. It would be a symbol of who she was as a soldier. After much thought, she selected the name Shadow Hawk. The name carried a deeper meaning. Shadow symbolized her ability to move quietly and unseen, to observe and strike without drawing attention. Hawk reflected her sharp instincts, precision, and vigilance. Emily didn't choose the name to impress anyone. She chose it because it represented the skills she had cultivated, the qualities that defined her approach to combat and strategy. From that day forward, Emily became Shadow Hawk in the field, and the name would soon carry weight far beyond what anyone expected. The adoption of the codename coincided with more complex and dangerous missions. Emily's team was now tasked with intelligence gathering and infiltration missions in enemy-controlled areas, assignments where even small mistakes could have catastrophic consequences. In these operations, Shadow Hawk's role became vital. Her ability to stay unseen, analyze situations quickly, and make precise decisions allowed the team to succeed where others might fail. She moved like a shadow in the night, silent and undetectable, yet always alert and ready to strike if necessary. What made Shadow Hawk exceptional was not just her stealth, but the combination of her training, her intelligence, and her instincts. She had learned to read the environment, notice patterns, and predict enemy movements. During missions, she could anticipate danger before anyone else, guiding her team safely through hostile territory. Her presence brought a sense of calm and focus to the unit. Even the most experienced soldiers began to rely on her judgment, quietly acknowledging that the young recruit who had once been doubted was now indispensable in the field. The codename also began to take on a life of its own. While Emily was focused on performing her duties and keeping the team safe, intelligence reports and rumors among the enemy ranks started to mention a mysterious operative they could not identify. Someone who moved with unmatched skill and precision. Her reputation was growing quietly but significantly, carried by whispers and reports that described a shadow-like figure who seemed to appear and disappear at will. Unbeknownst to her enemies, this was Shadow Hawk, Emily Walker, the recruit they had once dismissed as weak and inexperienced. Even within her team, the codename changed how they interacted with Emily. The nickname wasn't just a name. It became a symbol of reliability, skill, and fearlessness. When planning missions, her teammates would refer to Shadow Hawk's position and movements with confidence, knowing that she would carry out her role with unmatched precision. The transformation from Emily, the nervous 18-year-old recruit, to Shadow Hawk, the highly capable operative, was now complete. Her actions, rather than her words, defined her identity in the field. Emily also understood the psychological power of a codename. Names in the military are more than labels, they carry meaning and impact morale. To her team, Shadow Hawk represented a soldier who could be trusted to handle impossible situations. To her enemies, the name was beginning to evoke uncertainty and fear. Emily realized that her codename, combined with her skills and intelligence, could become a strategic advantage. By the time an operation ended, the enemy might be unaware of her real identity, but the shadow of the hawk would already have left a mark. As she continued to prove herself, Emily's confidence grew. She had learned that true skill was not about showing off. It was about performing consistently under pressure, staying calm, and thinking strategically. Shadow Hawk was no longer just a code name. It was a representation of Emily's journey, her growth from an underestimated recruit to a soldier capable of extraordinary feats. Her peers and instructors respected her for her abilities, and the codename gave her a quiet sense of pride without arrogance. She had earned her place in the Special Forces not through words, but through every calculated move, every successful mission, and every life-saving decision she made. The significance of Shadow Hawk's codename became most apparent during joint operations with other units. When intelligence analysts mentioned Shadow Hawk in reports, it sparked interest and sometimes apprehension. The name was associated with success and precision, and while Emily remained anonymous to the broader world, the reputation of Shadow Hawk began to grow steadily. She understood that this reputation could be a tool. Fear and respect, even in silence, were powerful allies in warfare. Her identity, carefully guarded behind the codename, gave her both protection and influence in the field. By the end of this period, Emily had transformed completely. The young recruit once doubted and mocked was now Shadow Hawk. Silent, precise, intelligent, and deadly in her own way. Her codename symbolized not just her skills, but her journey, her resilience, and the respect she had earned. While she had not yet faced her ultimate challenges, Shadow Hawk had already begun leaving her mark on both her team and her enemies. The stage was set for Emily to prove that age, inexperience, and initial doubt could never limit true courage, intelligence, and determination. Emily Walker, now known in the field as Shadow Hawk, was entering a mission that would test everything she had learned so far. Unlike training exercises or smaller reconnaissance tasks, this assignment was high stakes. Her unit had received intelligence about a high-value enemy commander who was planning a major attack. The mission required infiltration into heavily guarded enemy territory, careful observation, and reporting vital information back to command. It was the kind of operation that could change the outcome of battles, and there was no room for mistakes. From the very beginning, Emily sensed the weight of responsibility. This wasn't about personal achievement or proving herself to the team anymore. Lives could be lost, and the success of the mission could influence the safety of countless soldiers and civilians. Every step she took had to be precise. Her training had taught her endurance, stealth, and strategy, but now she would see how those lessons held up under real pressure. She approached the mission with her usual calm focus, silently reviewing plans and anticipating potential problems. Her team moved quietly through rugged terrain, avoiding enemy patrols and navigating treacherous landscapes. Every sound could signal danger. Every shadow could hide a threat. Emily relied on her instincts as Shadow Hawk, moving with careful precision and alertness. She was aware of her surroundings in ways that many of her more experienced teammates sometimes overlooked. Her observations helped the team avoid traps, bypass heavily guarded checkpoints, and maintain the element of surprise. It was in moments like these that her codename began to feel more like a reality than a label. She truly was the hawk moving in the shadows. Tension rose as they approached the enemy commander's location. The area was heavily fortified, with patrols constantly on the move and lookout points that could easily spot intruders. The team had to balance speed with stealth, making sure they were never seen or heard. Emily's role was crucial. She had to identify weak points in the enemy's defenses, guide the team through the safest routes, and be ready to respond if anything went wrong. Her calm, calculated approach kept the team from panicking, and they followed her lead, trusting her judgment even in this high-pressure situation. Suddenly, the enemy made contact with the team. A patrol unexpectedly appeared in their path, forcing Emily to make split-second decisions. While some soldiers reacted with instinctive aggression, Emily analyzed the situation quickly. She signaled the team to take cover, calculated the patrol's movement, and suggested an alternate path to avoid confrontation. Her quick thinking prevented a firefight that could have jeopardized the mission. The other soldiers were struck by how effectively she managed the danger, realizing that her youth and inexperience did not limit her ability to handle life-or-death situations. As they got closer to the commander, the stakes grew even higher. Shadow Hawk observed every movement, noted the positions of guards, and anticipated potential ambush points. Her eyes scanned the terrain with sharp focus, and her mind processed multiple possibilities at once. It was a combination of instinct, strategy, and calm precision that allowed her team to move undetected through enemy lines. Emily had become the eyes and the guide for the mission, someone the team could rely on in moments of extreme pressure. The moment they finally had eyes on the enemy commander was intense. He was heavily guarded and unaware of the intruders in his midst. Initially, he dismissed the young operative he saw, a girl among seasoned soldiers, without realizing the full threat she posed. Emily, as Shadow Hawk, remained invisible in action but highly effective. Every movement she made was calculated, designed to gather information, stay undetected, and position the team advantageously. Her stealth and precision had already begun to frustrate the enemy, though he did not yet know why. The mission's success depended on more than observation. Emily and her team had to collect critical intelligence, record enemy positions, and exit the area safely. Using her training, Emily guided the team through tight spaces, past guards, and around traps, ensuring that no alarms were triggered. Her calm demeanor reassured the team, helping them stay focused even as tension mounted. Each step she took was deliberate, showcasing the discipline and skill that had transformed her from an underestimated recruit into an essential operative. By the time the team completed the mission and returned to friendly territory, Emily had proven herself beyond doubt. Her precise actions, strategic thinking, and ability to remain calm under pressure ensured not only the success of the mission but also the safety of her teammates. The enemy commander remained unaware of the young recruit who had silently observed and outmaneuvered his defenses. Emily had learned that true skill in the field was not about taking risks for glory. It was about achieving the mission with intelligence, patience, and courage. The experience solidified Emily's reputation as Shadowhawk. Her performance in this high-stakes mission showed her team and commanders that age and experience were not the only measures of capability. She had earned their respect, not through words or self-promotion, but through action under extreme pressure. More importantly, the seeds of fear had been planted among her enemies, even if they did not yet fully understand who she was. The code name that she had chosen had begun to carry weight, and Emily was ready to rise to the challenges that lay ahead. By the end of this assignment, Emily understood that this mission was just the beginning. She had proven to herself and others that she could handle danger, think critically under pressure, and make decisions that mattered. Her journey from being the mocked, inexperienced recruit to becoming Shadowhawk, the skilled operative, was accelerating. And while the enemy commander had not yet realized the full extent of her capabilities, Emily was quietly preparing for the moment when her presence, and her codename, would change everything. The moment Emily Walker, now known as Shadowhawk, had been preparing for finally arrived. Her team was deep inside enemy territory, close to the high-value commander they had been tasked to observe. Unlike previous missions, this one was far more dangerous. The enemy commander was experienced, ruthless, and highly guarded. A single mistake could have been fatal for Emily and her team. But Emily had trained for this, and every lesson from the grueling training, every early struggle as a young recruit, had prepared her for this exact moment. At first, the commander didn't take her seriously. From a distance, he saw only a small, young operative among seasoned soldiers. He assumed that this mission would be straightforward, that the intruders were inexperienced and easy to manipulate. This underestimation would become his biggest mistake. Emily moved with calculated precision, aware that her every action was being observed, not just by her team but potentially by the enemy as well. She had learned that being underestimated could be a powerful advantage, and she intended to use it to full effect. Emily's first task was observation. Hidden in the shadows, she scanned the surroundings, noting guard rotations, patrol patterns, and areas that were lightly secured. Her eyes caught details that others might have overlooked. A loose board in a watchtower, a blind spot near the commander's tent, and subtle gestures of the guards that hinted at their routines. Every detail was critical. Emily quietly relayed information to her team using hand signals, ensuring that everyone stayed coordinated without giving away their position. As the team approached closer, the tension grew. The commander moved among his guards, confident and unaware of the intruders. Emily remained calm, using patience as her weapon. She knew that any rash action could blow their cover, and one wrong move could result in disaster. Instead of rushing, she analyzed the situation carefully, considering every possibility and planning the safest path forward for her team. Her patience and strategic thinking set her apart from others. Many recruits would have panicked or acted impulsively, but Emily had learned to remain composed even under extreme pressure. Suddenly, a small disturbance threatened to expose the team. A guard began to move unpredictably, almost spotting their position. Emily reacted immediately. She signaled her team to freeze, then guided them to safer cover. Every movement was deliberate, silent, and precise. Her actions kept the team hidden and prevented an early confrontation that could have jeopardized the mission. In this moment, the other soldiers began to fully recognize her skill. Shadowhawk was not just another recruit. She was the guiding force that ensured their survival and success. When the commander finally noticed the intruders, it was already too late. He expected disorganization, inexperience, and fear. Instead, he saw a unit moving with precision and coordination, led by someone who was calm, intelligent, and decisive. Emily anticipated his reaction and countered potential threats before they could materialize. She guided her team through narrow paths, past guards, and around traps, always staying one step ahead. The commander's initial confidence began to waver as he realized that he was facing an unexpected challenge. Emily's intelligence and strategic thinking allowed her to turn the situation to their advantage. She identified weak points in the enemy's defenses and guided her team to exploit them safely. Every decision was calculated, whether to wait, advance, or remain hidden. Her calm and foresight created opportunities for the team to gather vital intelligence and secure strategic positions. The commander, who had initially dismissed her as insignificant, was now beginning to understand that this young operative was far more dangerous than he had imagined. Her ability to remain unseen while actively influencing the mission highlighted a rare combination of skill and instinct. Shadow Hawk moved like a shadow, silent and undetectable, yet every action she took had a meaningful impact on the outcome. Her calm presence inspired confidence in her teammates, who began to rely on her judgment fully. Emily's earlier struggles as a young, underestimated recruit had prepared her for this moment, showing her that persistence, intelligence, and courage were more powerful than physical strength alone. As the mission progressed, Emily orchestrated movements that disoriented the commander and his guards. By controlling the flow of the operation, she created the impression of a much larger and more experienced force than was actually present. Every step, every decision, every signal she gave amplified the efficiency of the team while keeping the enemy off balance. The commander's fear began to take root. Not panic yet, but the realization that he had misjudged his opponents. When the operation finally concluded, the team had achieved everything they were sent to do. Vital intelligence had been gathered, positions had been assessed, and the enemy remained unaware of who had orchestrated their own disadvantage. Emily's role had been pivotal. Her combination of stealth, intelligence, and calm leadership had allowed her team to succeed where failure could have meant disaster. The young recruit, once labeled deadweight, had now turned the tables completely, demonstrating her value beyond doubt. Emily walked away from the mission with a quiet sense of accomplishment. She had faced one of the most dangerous situations of her young career and emerged victorious, not through brute force, but through strategy, observation, and patience. The commander she had outmaneuvered would remember this encounter, even if he did not yet know who Shadow Hawk really was. Emily's codename, reputation, and skill were now intertwined, becoming a silent legend that would grow with every mission she completed. By the end of this operation, it was clear that Emily had evolved from an underestimated recruit into a formidable operative. She had proven that intelligence, patience, and strategy could overcome raw experience and brute force. Shadow Hawk was no longer just a name. It was a symbol of precision, skill, and quiet power. The mission had shown her team, her instructors, and even the enemy that Emily Walker was a soldier who could change the course of events simply by being smart, calm, and fearless under pressure. The enemy commander had always been confident in his power, his experience, and his ability to control every situation. He had faced seasoned soldiers before, and he had always emerged unscathed. But when Shadow Hawk, the young operative he had once dismissed as a mere recruit, began to outmaneuver his forces, a creeping sense of fear began to take hold. He couldn't see her face, didn't know her real identity, and yet she was everywhere, observing, anticipating, and controlling the battlefield with an uncanny precision. From the very start of the mission, Emily had moved with the quiet efficiency that her codename suggested. She was unseen, unheard, but her influence was everywhere. Guards were subtly redirected, patrols avoided traps without incident, and every route through enemy territory was carefully chosen to maximize safety while gathering vital intelligence. The commander initially assumed these were lucky coincidences, the result of disorganization among his own troops. But as the operation unfolded, he realized that Shadow Hawk's actions were deliberate, calculated, and far beyond what any inexperienced recruit could accomplish. Emily's ability to anticipate enemy moves created a growing sense of unease. Every time the commander ordered a reposition or a countermeasure, he found his plans already thwarted, often without understanding why. Shadow Hawk's strategic thinking and situational awareness were disorienting him. It was as if he were playing a game of chess, but his opponent was always several moves ahead, invisible and impossible to predict. The commander's initial arrogance turned into anxiety, and the small cracks in his confidence began to widen. For Emily, the situation required more than physical skill. It demanded mental acuity. She had to stay several steps ahead at all times, constantly analyzing patterns, adjusting tactics, and predicting enemy reactions. Her calm, collected mindset allowed her to make split-second decisions that kept her team safe while ensuring that the enemy remained unaware of their true positions. Shadow Hawk had become the silent force directing the mission, and the commander, despite his power and experience, could feel the invisible grip she held over the battlefield. The commander's fear was not sudden. It was a slow, creeping realization. At first, he chalked up his failures to chance, blaming miscommunication or a lapse among his guards. But when every strategic adjustment he made was anticipated and countered, he began to understand that something or someone was systematically dismantling his operations. Shadow Hawk's presence was invisible, but its effects were unmistakable. Every time he tried to regain control, he was subtly outmaneuvered, and the young operative he had dismissed so easily became the source of a fear he could not ignore. Emily's mastery of stealth and precision amplified the effect of her fearsome reputation. She moved through enemy territory like a shadow, blending with the environment, observing without being observed, and taking actions that left the commander questioning his own capabilities. Her team followed her lead seamlessly, but it was her strategic foresight that guided every step. The commander realized that this was no ordinary operative. He was facing someone who combined intelligence, skill, patience, and fearlessness in a way he had not encountered before. The psychological impact on the enemy commander was profound. Fear can be as powerful a weapon as any rifle or explosive, and Emily had mastered its silent application. By remaining unseen yet highly effective, she forced the commander to doubt every decision, second-guess his strategies, and question the reliability of his own guards. Shadow Hawk had become a name whispered in enemy circles, a ghostly figure who struck indirectly through intelligence and precision rather than brute force. Emily had turned the commander's confidence into anxiety without firing a single shot. Her team also benefited from the commander's growing unease. As the enemy became more cautious and hesitant, Emily was able to guide her team into advantageous positions, gather critical intelligence, and secure areas that might otherwise have been heavily defended. Her composure under pressure, combined with her ability to think several moves ahead, created an environment where her team could operate effectively even in a hostile, high-risk situation. Every success reinforced the commander's fear, and Emily's legend as Shadow Hawk grew stronger with each calculated action. Emily's courage and skill during this phase of the mission exemplified the difference between a trained soldier and a true operative. While other soldiers relied on brute force or experience alone, she relied on intelligence, observation, and strategy. The commander, despite his training and past successes, realized that Shadow Hawk was unpredictable, elusive, and incredibly effective. Her presence was like a shadow over his plans, unseen, yet impossible to ignore. By the end of the mission, the commander's perception of Emily had completely shifted. The young recruit he had mocked and underestimated had become a force to be reckoned with, someone whose very codename inspired caution and fear. Shadow Hawk was no longer just a soldier operating behind enemy lines. She had become a psychological weapon, demonstrating that skill, intelligence, and courage could create power even in the absence of sheer numbers or experience. Emily herself remained calm and focused, never seeking recognition for the fear she had instilled. Her goal had always been the success of the mission, the safety of her team, and the completion of objectives with precision and strategy. But by quietly outmaneuvering the commander and his forces, she had achieved something far greater. She had proven that age, inexperience, and ridicule could never define true ability. The once dismissive commander now faced the reality that Shadow Hawk was a name to fear, a symbol of intelligence, skill, and courage that could not be underestimated. By the end of Part 7, Emily had fully transformed from the young, mocked recruit into a respected operative whose codename carried weight, power, and influence. Shadow Hawk had become more than a name. It was a force, a legend in motion, and a reminder that determination, intelligence, and courage could overcome even the most formidable adversaries. Emily Walker, known to her team and soon to her enemies as Shadowhawk, had finally returned from her most challenging mission yet. She had faced danger head-on, navigated through enemy territory with precision, and outsmarted one of the most feared commanders the intelligence unit had been tracking. But the moment she returned to her base, it wasn't just relief that she felt. It was a quiet, profound sense of accomplishment. She had proven, in the most intense way possible, that she was no longer the young recruit who had once been dismissed as deadweight. She had become a soldier, a strategist, and a hero in the making. Her teammates greeted her with a mix of awe and respect. Those who had once doubted her abilities now looked at her with admiration. They saw the transformation that had taken place over the past months. The journey from a nervous 18-year-old, learning the ropes, to a confident operative whose skill, calm under pressure, and intelligence had guided them through one of the most dangerous missions they had ever faced. The name Shadowhawk was whispered among the team with reverence, not just as a code name, but as a symbol of courage, precision, and determination. Emily herself didn't seek the praise or attention. Her focus had always been on the mission and on keeping her team safe. Yet, the recognition she received was undeniable. Commanders and trainers acknowledged her brilliance, noting how she had executed complex strategies, adapted to rapidly changing situations, and maintained calm in moments when others might have panicked. They saw what her teammates had already witnessed firsthand. That Emily's strength wasn't just physical. It was mental, emotional, and tactical. She had proven that being underestimated could become a hidden advantage, allowing her to surprise both allies and enemies with her abilities. Her return also marked a turning point in her own self-confidence. Emily now fully believed in her own capabilities. Every drill, every failure, every challenge she had endured had led to this moment. She knew that age, inexperience, and initial skepticism from others were irrelevant when matched with determination, intelligence, and courage. Her journey had been about more than surviving the mission. It had been about redefining what it meant to be capable, strong, and fearless. She had earned not just respect, but trust, from her team and commanders alike. The impact of her actions extended beyond her own unit. Intelligence reports had already begun to circulate about Shadowhawk, describing a skilled operative who moved with unmatched precision and stealth, and who had outmaneuvered an enemy commander previously thought unbeatable. While Emily remained anonymous in these reports, the codename itself had begun to carry weight. For the enemy, Shadowhawk became a figure to fear. For the military, she became a model of what could be achieved through focus, training, and unwavering determination. Emily had not only completed her mission, she had left a legacy in her wake. The transformation she had undergone was evident in how she approached the next steps of her career. She now understood that leadership was not about asserting authority or demanding recognition, but about inspiring others through example. Her composure under pressure, strategic thinking, and ability to act decisively had set a standard for other recruits. Even the most experienced soldiers recognized that they could learn from her, that skill, intelligence, and courage were often more valuable than years of experience. Shadowhawk had become a symbol, showing that potential is not defined by age, but by determination and perseverance. Emily's personal growth was as significant as her professional achievements. She had learned the importance of patience, observation, and humility. Her journey had taught her that success does not come from brute force alone, but from careful planning, intelligence, and the courage to act decisively when the moment demands it. She also understood the value of teamwork, how guiding, supporting, and inspiring her fellow soldiers could amplify their combined strength. The young recruit who had once doubted herself now recognized her own power and influence, and she wielded it with quiet confidence. When she reflected on how far she had come, Emily could hardly believe the journey she had completed. From being mocked as deadweight to becoming a figure whose codename struck fear into the enemy, every struggle had contributed to her transformation. Each obstacle, each failure, and each challenge had strengthened her resolve, sharpened her mind, and honed her skills. She realized that true success is not measured by how quickly one achieves victory, but by the perseverance, courage, and intelligence displayed along the way. By the time part 8 of her story concluded, Emily Walker had become more than a skilled operative. She had become a legend in her own right. Shadow Hawk was no longer just a code name. It was a symbol of resilience, intelligence, courage, and determination. She had inspired her team, impressed her commanders, and created a lasting impression on her enemies. Her journey from an underestimated, nervous 18-year-old to a capable, fearless soldier was complete, proving that determination and skill can overcome doubt, ridicule, and even the most formidable challenges. Emily returned not just as a soldier who had completed a mission, but as a hero who had earned her place through effort, intelligence, and courage. The story of Shadow Hawk would continue to inspire others, recruits, soldiers, and civilians alike, showing that true potential cannot be measured by age or appearance, but by resilience, intelligence, and the courage to face the impossible. She had proved that being underestimated is never a weakness. It is the perfect opportunity to rise above and redefine what it means to be truly extraordinary.